from there. There we go. All right. Well, this is our July call. We got some new folks on today and some OGs as well. And so if you're joining us, we're so glad that you're here. If you're watching this in some other time or some other time zone, we're glad you're catching up to that. Just a little preface, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and share screen here. Just a little preface to our conversation today. Over the last few times that we've been together, we've spent some time really doing some real work personally, which I think is amazing, right? We had some talk around spirit led and some of those things, and it's fantastic. Today, we're going to really kind of pivot back a little bit the other direction on the pendulum of strategy and spirit led. We're probably going to move a little bit more towards the strategic side today. And there actually is a deck that we will send you at the end of this call. Those of you that are on the email list for Think Tank, and we will also maybe even send you some notes because we actually put together some notes for the call today, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes we're just kind of winging it, but today we actually have some notes that we're working off of. And so we will do that. This is where I do Snod, I want you to unmute and do the unapologetic, the shameless plug. Okay, you're up.
Absolutely. Think Tank Live, man. This is one of the best things. One of the things we at Grumman love is we love getting together. I think the uniqueness of our gathering versus anything else is the fact that we get there and we actually get to spend quality time with each other, not just go and sit in a room and sing Kumbaya and or just listen to a leader. It's like the circles are better
I
than
like
rows.
Kumbaya. I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of
I know. I
Kumbaya.
like Kumbaya, but in the same adage that a lot of us use, the circle's better than chairs. That's kind of how we lead our gathering. And we really do create a lot of incredible conversations where oftentimes the thing we hear the most is when guys go home, women go home, any of the leaders go home. What happens is they say, "Oh my gosh, the best time I had was connecting with so and so at." And so I want you to know that there's some incredible, I believe, divine appointments for you to have
That's
conversations
good.
at this gathering that I encourage you guys to be at. But honestly, it's such a good time, such a fun time. It honestly fills up pretty quick. So, it's not the encouragement just to do it because I'm saying it, but the encouragement because we want you there badly.
Right.
So get there, sign up, sign your team up, sign your friends up, and let's get there and have a good time together because we're better together, as the old
Love
adage.
that. Love
Yep.
it. Yeah, and a lot of you have said, "Hey, we're coming," but you're at that point now, end of summer, where you need to commit. The one thing that we just say and we frame it, and you do you, is that it's a very boutique gathering. So every year there's less than 100 leaders, but the leadership that we encourage to be there is what we would loosely call executive level leadership. So typically, your children's person, your youth person, love them. This is not designed for them. This is designed for lead pastors, executive pastors, or executive teams that are at the table making decisions. We're going to be talking about work on it, work on it one day. We're going to have Lance Witt with us from Replenish. We're going to have David Thomas from Asbury Seminary and the revival stuff that's happening there on the first day. And on the second day, we're going to be doing a lot more of the strategic, practical stuff. You're going to be hearing from a lot of your peers presenting some TED Talk style hits on the 5 key areas of church on mission and how they're learning and the ways that they're failing and all of that around those so that you can take back and go from there. So there's a code that you'll get. I'll put it right up real quick again if you want to scan it, but it'll also be in the email. And this is, just to be clear, this is a discount just for people that join the call or on that mailing list, and it's off of the regular price. And so, yeah, you get there Wednesday, you go home Friday afternoon, so it's 2 nights, and it's a great time in Vegas. We've got some extra special stuff planned for you, including a Thursday night dinner at the rooftop of the Paris. We pulled some strings, so if you bring your spouse, all that, they're invited to all of that. It's going to be fantastic. Okay, great. All right, here we go. We're going to do some work on it today. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the topic of really thriving through the turns, and you guys don't know what that means yet, but you're about to. We're going to talk about recognizing the season that you're in, and then we're going to talk about leading through the tension of that season that you're in as you discover it, and then building some rhythms through that season that reinforce alignment. Some of you are like, "What are you talking about?" We'll get there in just a moment. The key is this. This is how I want to set it up, and any of our guys can jump in at any point. Just unmute and interrupt me. But the key is that I think all of you will agree with this, that just like any organization, churches don't stay in one place forever. They just don't. They just don't. They move through seasons. All of you on this call, if you've been in church ministry for any time at all, you recognize that your church looks differently. There's different seasons. There's seasons of momentum. There's seasons where things are messy. There's seasons of crisis. There's season where everything's glorious, and you're just like, man, this is why I'm doing ministry, right? And so over the next 45 minutes, I just want to kind of have an honest conversation that's also filled with hope about maybe taking and recognizing where your church's current season might be here in the middle of the summer, and where it is, and maybe give you some tools to navigate as you head into the fall with a little bit of clarity, maybe even just a little bit of courage and strength to go in and go, I want to ask some hard questions. Part of what we're going to do is give you some practical tools at the end, but also one of the best things, what's that old book, Leading with Questions or something like that? It's the idea of like, sometimes if you just ask the right questions, you will come to the right solution. Sometimes we jump to solutions. So hopefully we'll do that, and that'll be helpful for you guys today. But I want you to see this. I actually put it on the slide. So just so you guys recognize this, the call today is about clarity, not criticism. Okay, we're not trying to criticize where anybody is. Frankly, you don't even have to tell us where you are today. That's not important or relevant to the call. But I don't want you to leave the call feeling discouraged. I want you to feel encouraged because, as I said here, we lead better when we name what's real. We want to be spirit led and invite God into it, and then we want to commit to how do we walk forward in this, and how do we get better together. So we want to be able to do that, and so we want to have honest conversation about that. There are no silver bullets. We're not going to fix you today. Sorry, Sue. I know it's your first call. We're not going to fix every problem that you have today. You'll be so disappointed, but hopefully we're going to give you at least a little bit of light and a little bit of pathway forward. Okay. So some of you guys are familiar with something similar to this. Anybody ever read Predictable Success by Les McKeown? Show of hands. If you haven't, it's not extremely new, but I would say probably within the last decade or so, it kind of emerged. Over the last couple months, I've kind of gotten reacquainted with that and with what he was doing there, and it's basically a very smart version of an organizational life cycle. And so he obviously did not design it for the church space. And so I spent some time, and our team spent some time back and forth a little bit yesterday, last couple of days, kind of going, what would this look like in the church space? So this is so hot off the press that the font may not even be the right size. So just so you know, this is something that I think we want to wrestle with together. So let me walk you through side by side each of these steps, and then I'd invite our team or any of you to unmute and pause at each space, and let's talk about it. Okay. What I want you to understand is that these are stages. And so I'm going to go back and forth from the church space to the secular space as I talk about it, just to help you kind of grasp. It might be helpful for you to grasp where we are. Okay. So starting on the lower left, these are our terms. Les's terms are in parentheses. So I wanted to make sure he got credit for his thinking around it. But we changed the terms a little bit more ministry centric. Can everybody see my screen? Great. So on the lower left is what we call the grind. Any church planners on the call? Raise your hand, put your head down on the desk, whatever you need to do to feel better right now. Jeff, I know. Yeah, so that's where we are. So the grind is that season, and it's not just for church planners, but the grind is the season that Les calls early struggle. And this is the time where you're just getting something, you're basically digging it out of the dirt. It's all that we have this idea, we have this vision, we have some kind of a passion, but everything's a struggle. I just met with a church planner last week who had a number two, an associate, and the associate and he got sideways. They're a portable church. They're in a middle school. The associate got sideways. And so the associate announced on Saturday afternoon via text, hey, I'm out and I'm taking 10 families with me. We all think you're a terrible leader. Okay. As a church planner, it's just like the most devastating thing, right? You're in early struggle already. You don't even know if you can plug in the projector on Sunday, and then you got people walking out, right? We all have our version of what early struggle and grind looks like, but it's a big deal. And so that's what that is. Let me go back and forth from the I should have done this in a different order, so please forgive me. So in the grind, we are leading. You know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go back to the thing, and I'm going to go through the whole thing, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay. So the grind is early struggle. Then we go to what's called Spark, what we're calling Spark, which is also what Les would call fun. This is the season. Let's pretend we're making some kind of a project. We're making a widget in our garage and we've discovered something. We haven't gone on Shark Tank yet, but we've got this cool little thing that we're doing, right? And we start doing it. And so Johnny and Sue and I, we're all getting in my garage and we're making these widgets. And we're at 3 a.m. We're ordering Taco Bell from Grubhub. We're kicking these things out. We don't even know if we're making any money. We don't know if it's any good, but we're just having, it's just amazing. The Spotify Yacht Rocket playlist is on. That's that spark fun season that you get in as an organization. And in ministry, we have those seasons, right? Where it's fun, where we're enthusiastic, we're all about it. At the same time, we probably don't really know what the heck we're doing, or we don't have a lot of direction there. I think about some seasons of growth that I've been in church leadership, where if someone was honestly to sit me down and say, "Why are you growing?" Obviously, the Holy Spirit is working. I wouldn't have really been able to answer that question. It was just happening. And that's kind of that season of fun. Okay. We're going to go back through all these. Okay. So then you go into what's called whitewater. Okay. And whitewater is crazy season. That's when we're shipping these widgets and eating Taco Bell, and we ship 1,000 to a new customer and they're all flawed and they ship them back and they want their money back. And all of a sudden, Johnny and Sue are not happy to be my business partners anymore. We are now in whitewater. We are experiencing the first turbulence of that experience. And so in the church ministry, we experience that as well, right? It's that thing. I mean, frankly, COVID pandemic was the ultimate whitewater for most of us in the last decade, right? Where wherever we were on this momentum cycle, we found ourselves in whitewater. And when you get out of whitewater, the hope I want to give you is when you get out of whitewater, you get into a season of, you typically will get into a season of harmony and flow. I will say this, and this might be helpful for some of you. There is a strategy that some organizations and churches use when they get in whitewater. Instead of doing the work to get to harmony and flow, they decide to go back to spark and fun. So they just make the decision, we're not going to do all that, because you know how you get out of whitewater? You get out of whitewater by introducing things like process, structure, rhythms, disciplines, right? You do these things. And it's same with if you're on the river in whitewater, right? You do these things that you know will get you through that. You follow the disciplines, you follow the things that you know. And if you introduce enough of that to the organization or the ministry, you will get into a season where things will start to flow. We'll be in harmony. We're starting to make our mission's starting to really thrive. Our vision starting to be accomplished. Everybody tracking? The problem is if you introduce too much process and structure for too long, you know where you're headed, right? Now you're on the other side of the pendulum. Now you're in treadmill. I was just on the treadmill this morning at the hotel because it's 88 degrees in Houston with 150,000 degrees of humidity. This desert guy can't do it. So I'm on the treadmill. The thing about interesting about a treadmill is a treadmill is good for you for a while. But if you've ever tried to train for anything and run only on the treadmill and then you try to go outside, it's not the same, right? The elements, etc., it's not the same. You're not even going anywhere. You're just spinning in place. And that's the treadmill moment that ministries and churches get into. We've introduced so much structure, process, we're bored out of our mind. And by the way, guess who bails on your staff and your team, or maybe even from your seats when you're in treadmill? All the creative, courageous, risky people that want to ideate and try new things and make a difference. If they sense treadmill for too long in your church, they will go find something else to meet that need that God has given them. So be careful. If we don't get out of treadmill, we go into maintenance, which is also called the rut by Les, and then eventually we will go into decline or death rattle. Okay, that is the flow. You see on my screen the yellow pendulum. It's the best I could do for a pendulum. Don't judge. I don't need comments in the chat. All I could do was an arrow, and it's animated. So shut your pie hole. It's awesome. Okay, but the idea is that in any good organization that's healthy will typically move from treadmill to whitewater on a rhythm, whatever that is. It doesn't mean it's like consistent. It just means you're going to get into treadmill because you're going to do so much process. You're going to have to introduce some innovation, some fun, some different things, some potential whitewater-ish type things that will throw you back this direction. And then you're going to have to reintroduce some things to add some disciplines in to get you back here. All right. I want to go through slide by slide, but I want to stop for a minute, allow any of my guys on the call or any of you to unmute and add or ask questions. I'm not in the chat. So if somebody wants to throw things in the chat at me, you can do that as well. Ready, go.
Hey Lee, I'd love to jump in. So one thing that I think I've noticed, and maybe this will apply to some of you guys and gals, like you may have just entered an organization that may be in a different cycle than you are. So I think when we
Mm,
enter organizations, you may be in that kind of grind spark, entering Whitewater, but you may be entering an organization that's in that treadmill maintenance mode, and you feel this dissonance in trying to figure out how to wrestle. How do you get an organization back to where you are, or how do you get to where you may need to be? You may be in the treadmill phase as a leader, but your
that's good.
organization is moving in Whitewater. And how do you navigate that? So I think that's another application of this.
Real good. My wife and I actually did a relational thing with married couples, and we took a version of this. I know you're like getting it everywhere, and we used it for relationships. And the idea that relationships move from treadmill phase to whitewater phase, and how do you navigate and how do you do some practical things, which we're going to talk about. Okay, other unmute comments, thoughts.
One thing I've heard about life cycle just in general too, you'll have a different or a variety of style leaders that like to stay in certain spots like you were articulating, Lee. And one of
Okay.
the things that can happen with that too is you'll have a certain style leader that will stay in one of those phases and will continue to rinse and repeat by staying in there. And it sometimes happens reactively, but I think for us on executive level leadership, let's be proactive in terms of what area we want to be or where we need to be. So even going from like whitewater to treadmill and finding that harmony and flow, that we're being intentional and kind of figuring out where those seasons are so that we can be intentional on how to spark that next item, next step, whatever you would call it. So just being intentional is the main thing I'm saying.
Love it. When in just a second, I'm going to go through each of these again with a little bit more of a deep dive, but I want to give you a chance. Maybe some of you would be bold enough to just identify or ask questions around where you think your ministry might potentially be right now. I'd love for anybody that would have that kind of authenticity would be great. And maybe what are some signs of why you say you think you're there? Don't all unmute at once. Steve, calling Steve.
I I can
Actually,
see.
so
Mike,
Lee, I think
go Mike. Yep.
I think we're in treadmill phase. And one
Okay.
of my questions is, would you view like going from whitewater to treadmill in terms of like 6 months or a year? Like, what would
Mm.
you say? Because it's probably going back and forth, the pendulum swinging too fast could be dangerous as well.
I think that's great. Why? Let me ask you a question. Why do you give me just without revealing too much? Why have you landed there? What sort of behaviors or some sort of signs are you seeing, Mike?
I mean, a year ago we did a big campaign, so I would say we inserted rocks to create whitewater for our people. We saw growth, giving was up, everything's great, and now we're just kind of like in a normal flow. Sundays are easy, things are up and
Hmm.
to the right, but not as much as they were, and so it just feels kind of easy. And when you
Do you
look at the
think it's
data,
do you, do you think it's treadmill or is it just kind of that late harmony flow season? Do you think you're in treadmill yet, or do you think maybe that's where we're headed if we don't do something?
that,
Okay,
and so as the leader, we can be prone to moving too fast, and then that's when the team feels whiplash between the two.
right.
My opinion.
Good. Yep. One of the things that's interesting is that um, whitewater happens either intentionally or unintentionally, right? So there's some intentional things that we can do when we believe that there needs to be change, right? If you want to call whitewater change or disruption or ideation, fine. But any of that, sometimes we do that intentionally. And then sometimes unintentionally or indirectly, we are thrown into whitewater. Staff structure changes, finances fall off the cliff, people leave. There's just a lot of things that you have no control over that can throw you into whitewater. And so I don't think there's anything on this chart besides maintenance and decline that is terrible. I think those are all reality. I think maintenance and decline are scary because I think when you get into that far right, it's probably going to take something catastrophic to get you back even close to probably directly into whitewater, right? It's just going to have to be catastrophic. You're not going to gently move from maintenance or decline back into harmony and flow. Let's go through these. I'll just keep going through these. So, and you're going to get all this, so I don't need to spend a bunch of time here, but I want you guys to see this. So, this is the early struggle, and maybe this applies to some of you. I also think, oh, I was going to say this, and some of you guys jump in. I also think not to overuse this model, forgive me, but I think this can apply to ministries that you're doing within your church as well. So for some of you, it may not be as applicable for where you are macro, but on a micro level, you may have a ministry that you're starting and you're in grind and you're leading an early struggle, or you have a team member who is, and you need to go in their office after this and put this up on the wall and go, I just need you to realize where you are so that you understand it's okay, right? You are in the early struggle. You are in the uphill effort doing that. All right. Here's what it feels like when you're in early struggle. Everything's urgent, nothing's stable, nothing's guaranteed, right? Everybody's wearing multiple hats. We're doing what we need to do to make this thing go, to make it go. Again, church planner, that's the easy example of that, right? Like I remember when I was a church planner, I was doing setup and tear down because I was a terrible delegator. And so I know you can talk to me about it later. So I was setting everything up and setting up chairs, and then I would go into the teacher's lounge at the school, and I would try to kind of, sponge bath myself, fix what I had hair back then, fix my hair, and then I would be on stage in an hour and I would be speaking, after setting up projectors. And so that's just kind of what you do for at least a certain season where you wear those hats. That's if you're doing that, that's probably early struggle. To get out of early struggle, we got to make sure we understand where our vision is. We start to build some early rhythms and culture, knowing that in early struggle, we're actually implanting DNA. And then maybe there's some things we just need to focus on and prioritize. So key questions would be who's carrying too much without support, and what are we trying to do that we haven't defined? I love that question. That would be worth wrestling with right now. With some of the ministries maybe that you're starting, like, has it been defined why we're doing that? How does it fit into our 10-year vision if we have one? Those sorts of things. Anybody want to make a comment or on our team on this early struggle grind season before I move forward? Cool. All right, let me go to the next one. Don't be so engaged today. I feel like I'm in a bad small group. Here we go. All right. Here's the spark or the fun. This is where we capture some early momentum, right? The vision takes off. We're up and to the right? Creativity is flowing. Growth is, just feels like everybody's energized. So if you're in that season, or you have something in that season, I would be paying attention, because you're probably some things to really learn in this spark season where things are sparking and moving, right? But also, I love this one right here at the third bullet under what leaders must do. This is this is gold for you guys. Don't confuse excitement for sustainability. Yeah, I mean, I think you just let that sit, right? Like, all of us have been there in ministry that we're doing or have done, where it's like, man, everything's great, but the reality of, we've built something that actually isn't sustainable, and you went home at the end of the night or at the end of a season of doing that ministry, and you refresh, and if you were honest, you're like, I don't think we can keep doing it at this level or at this pace. Okay, so that's just something to pay attention to. The key questions here: what's fueling our growth, and what could break if we don't pay attention? Come on, right? What's fueling our growth, and what could break if we don't pay attention? Because again, in fun, in the spark season, things are just moving. Like, it's almost like we don't have to do anything and good stuff is happening. And that's just so intoxicating. So you guys, as the primary leaders, need to not discourage fun. I'm not saying get out of fun as quick as possible. I'm saying, as leaders, our responsibility is to steward the fun, to learn what we can, because we know that whitewater is coming. So that's why this second key question is, are we building systems in the background while things are still fun? So are we doing some things that are going to help make these things sustainable while they're still fun? Okay, another opportunity for you to inject yourself right here, but I'm only going to give about 5 seconds. Nate, please. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, I'll jump in. I think that middle one on what leaders must do, begin documenting what works and why, is like the least sexy thing people can do. But I think for people to go, organizations to go from oral tradition to written tradition is so important, because if it's all oral and it's like, oh, it's what that guy said, well, as soon as that guy or that lady leaves, you kind of lose a lot of the, the why was that working? And any sort of the beginning of systemization, I think, begins in documentation. So I think that's the most undervalued thing to get people up to that kind of predictable success, that in the middle and that harmony.
Yeah.
Lee, I got a question. This is Lindsay.
Hey, Linz.
You make a good point about sometimes you don't recognize why something was working, and to go back and build the system in place so it continues to be sustained, right? What's your advice on, hey, you recognize something after the fact? What would you say to, hey, going backwards a little bit to get the system in place? Can you speak to that a little bit?
And I'll let some of the other guys weigh in as well. I think for me, I think the learnings are applicable no matter what, right, Lance? So there are things that you can take from something that maybe can't be resurrected at that point. Maybe it's already declined and died, but there's something there that as you reinvent something again, that you don't repeat the same mistake that you've had before. I've been guilty in my ministry life of repeating the same mistakes because I was um, either chose to or was not self-aware enough to see what mistakes I was making. And so I would repeat those, right? Thinking if we could just do it better. And so some degree of accountability, even some of the tools that we'll talk about at the end that might help you actually create some degree of assessment of what's working and what's not, can be reference points for the future. So it's a great question. Let's talk a little bit about whitewater, because this is the good one. By a show of hands, any whitewater people in the room today? All right. A few, you're kind of like, I can't even raise my hand. Okay, John says yes. He agrees with that. I see that hand. I see that hand. We will do the sinner's prayer here in a minute. But when we get to whitewater, this is where things get complex. By the way, whitewater is not bad. I think I said that earlier, but I want to repeat that it's scary, but it doesn't make it bad. Most organizations that are really having a tremendous impact are the ones that have actually learned how to continually run through the cycle of whitewater, get themselves out of it, grow from it, change from it, have greater impact from it, and then know that it's coming again, right? Because it's chaos. So here's what it feels like. You're overwhelmed. Um, Maybe there's some decision making where you're just like up in the middle of the night. We're not really sure. Our systems are not keeping up with what we're doing, keeping up with growth, all those sorts of things. Like we haven't built systems for this particular incident. Sue had a great comment in the chat about that. So sometimes there's things that we can define, and sometimes there's things that we cannot define that just happen to us. So we have to respond. So sometimes the system isn't built because we've never expected to be here. And so now we have to sort of do that, right? I think what leaders must do in whitewater, if you're there today, is, we got to try to figure out how do we normalize a little bit of this chaos without accepting it. So it's like, okay, here's where we are. This is true. And then we begin to build some basic systems that are important to support what we're doing. This is the caution that's there, right? That the systems cannot kill the mission that we're on. Right. So sometimes whitewater are a result of us doing exactly the thing that God would want us to do. And our temptation might be to kill it because it feels a little chaotic. So just be careful there. All right. So the questions we would ask would be, what's working only because certain people are over functioning? That brings up an important point. Sometimes our org might not be in whitewater, but our team might be. So sit with that a little bit. In other words, yeah, everything's great. Feels like the church is moving and going, and your team is drowning, right? And so that would say, man, people are overwhelmed, right? And how is the chaos hurting your culture or clarity? I've worked for a few guys, not recently, but leaders who actually would create chaos when it didn't exist. That's how they were wired. Some of you may be that person, or you work for that person. It's like they come in on a certain day, and because everything is harmony and flow in your mind, they're going to just blow it up just because they're bored, or they watched Carey Nieuwhof in something he said recently. So that's the reality. Sorry. That's the reality of that. So is chaos. So talk a little bit about where you guys have experienced whitewater. This is good stuff. Somebody talk a little bit about whitewater, maybe how you got out of it. Sue, I see you. I see that.
And I just want to jump in for a second. So under
Please.
what it looked like with the unclear decision making. So
Yeah.
As somebody who sits in a seat where I feel like part of my responsibility is to make clear decisions. I would want to double click on that, because for me, whitewater has not been, hey, can a person make a clear decision or not? It's actually sometimes the decision to make is not clear. Like it's not clear like what the path forward is, and we kind of have to figure out um like, because it, like, let's say in an HR situation, it's it's still going to be hard. You know, even though the handbook may say something, but like, hey, it's an employee that you really valued, and it's heartbreaking and everything. It's I don't know how to describe this clearly. It's there's sometimes we hit whitewater, and the reason why it's whitewater is because the path forward is not clear, and that we as a leadership team or as an organization have to
Mm.
actually grow and adapt and learn in order to figure out what decisions do need to be made. And it's not always obvious at the beginning of it, what are the decisions that need to be made.
So are you trying to tell me that whitewater can actually be a time of growth and learning? Because I don't like that much, Sue.
Well, that's
Is
how
that what
I'm
you're
seeing whitewater.
insinuating a little bit? Is
Yes.
that what you're insinuating? Yeah, that's great. David?
I'd love to jump in. And I was curious if whitewater creates more whitewater. And what I mean by that is that so I stepped into an organization that's runs pretty lean, and we've had great growth, but fragile systems and a lean staff. And so when I'm stepping in and recognizing what needs to be done with basic leadership development pipelines and stuff like that, to institute that kind of system for a staff that's already running lean, and you're adding systems on top of a lean staff, it kind of perpetuates itself and creates a little bit more whitewater. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. At least for a season, right, David? At
Yeah,
least for a time, right? It's almost like to get out of whitewater, you got to stir it up a little bit. I know we're getting real
exactly.
lost in the metaphor here, but I think that that's helpful as well for it. And again, I want to reiterate what we said with the arrow that I said was a pendulum, and you believe me, that we are going to get into whitewater again and again and again. So there's no escaping it. In fact, I would say if you haven't been in whitewater for a while, you're probably not in harmony and flow, even though you may fool yourself. You may be in late treadmill and early maintenance if you haven't felt whitewater for a while. Okay. So, Nate?
Well, I'll tell you that, David, like, if anyone's been whitewater rafting before, there are some things that the guide in the back of the boat's screaming at you that feels chaotic and counterintuitive, but really he's trying to implement a system into this boat to get you through that whitewater where it feels like, why am I paddling backwards right now? Shouldn't I be going forward? Like, and so I think, David, to your point, there's a point where you're going like,
Mm,
hey, you got to trust me as your guide. I'm trying to get us through this, but if you don't listen to it, like, it's going to feel counterintuitive, but the reality is that's what actually gets you out of the whitewater. So
Lee, can you drill down on the normalize the chaos without accepting disorganization a little bit?
well, I think part of it is the normalize the chaos when we wrote that yesterday. I think it's kind of probably pushing Lindsay on the idea of like, let's not deny whitewater. Let's not be in denial around whitewater. So I think sometimes that's our gut reaction. We think as leaders, we have to pretend that things are normal, right? I spent a lot of time as a young leader thinking my job was to create normality. And so I would work really hard to create the feeling of normal in the organization or in my team. And I don't think normal is the goal, right? It's something else. And so I think what we need to do is actually make sure we understand that, like, hey, the the chaos that we're feeling is real, and now but we're not going to accept it. We're not going to stay there. Here's some of the things that we're going to do to begin to paddle out of it, to begin to navigate out of it. So I think that was there, Lindsay, mostly to talk about denial is dangerous in whitewater because then we won't address it.
That's good.
One way
Yeah.
you could say it, connecting Lee's thought and Nate's thought. Nate, your analogy of going whitewater rafting, listening to the guide is what ultimately gets you out of it. But in the same sense, like to connect another separate analogy in fly fishing, you want to fly fish in the whitewater because that's where your biggest fish is caught. And so rather than being in denial about whitewater or avoiding it, sometimes leaning into it is where the growth happens, like Sue was connecting. But coming back to where Lee is, that's where your biggest fish or your greatest memory is going to be created, is leaning into the whitewater. And so often we don't like it because it's uncomfortable. It's change. It's the change exhaustion, as Mike was talking about in the dialogue on the thread. So all of this stuff connects that we do have to embrace it, rather than run from it. And that's why it's like, I think being intentional at creating that memory and finding that big fish is huge.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And let's
I was
be,
just going to say, oh, sorry.
yeah, no, keep going.
I was just going to say, sometimes when we have team members that a lot of them really don't want to get out of this highly organized space, and when whitewater comes or where they feel overwhelmed, part of our job is the guy at the back of the boat, right? Trying to guide and direct through the chaos that those people feel probably more than people like myself or maybe some of you on the call. But I feel that tension at times, just trying to normalize the chaos a little bit for the people that are below you.
I love that you mentioned that, and then we're going to move, guys, because Lindsay, thank you for saying that, because I think part of this conversation is how we lead others. I think we can personalize this for sure, right? What does this mean for me as a leader, and how do I? But there is the part around our organization is here. I'm responsible for these individuals and for this team. How do I actually acknowledge where we are and then lead them calmly and with clarity out of it? And we kind of have a dual role, right? We have the organizational stewardship and we have the team stewardship that's going on all at the same time. So there you go.
Hey, Lee.
Okay. Yes, please go.
Yeah, just really fast. I know you said you guys did this yesterday, and I love where you're going with it so far. That word normalize the chaos underneath that middle section, what leaders must do. Would you be okay if we just conceptually edited that to say acknowledge the chaos rather than normalize it?
I like it. Yep.
Because
sure.
I don't want to normalize chaos in my organization, right? Like,
right.
Like I'm going to acknowledge it because it's the reality of where we are.
That's good.
I don't want to normalize it.
That's good. I like it. I would edit it, Christopher, but I can't because I would mess the screen up, and I'm not. It's just a huge mess. So if I don't edit it before you get it in the email, send me an email and make sure you remind me, because I do think you're right. I do think there's a level of normalization that chaos is coming, but I agree. We don't want people to just feel like that's the way it's going to be. So I appreciate that clarity. Let me move real quick, guys, because I want to make sure we get to the practical stuff at the end. This is just that in-between arrow, right? It's the idea of we're gonna recognize and the rhythm of feeling like things are chaotic and then things are under control, and having to constantly understand that and adjust and overcorrect, right, of what's going on. Like too much structure, too much process, too much of all of that is going to throw you into treadmill. Okay. Not enough structure, not enough process, not enough discipline, not enough acknowledgement, attacking the issues is going to keep you in whitewater. Okay, so that's basically, we'll move quickly through this. You see it online. You move from urgent innovation to overly structured preservation and then back again. And there's some of that. If you're going to ask me the question, what's the timing of that or when does that happen? I have no idea. Maybe it's not that frequent. Maybe in your particular organization or ministry, you're going to spend most of your time in harmony and flow, and that's amazing, right? But I can't predict where, nor can we, when that is going to happen. Okay, there you go. Okay, so this is just real quick. Let me talk about the top of the thing, this aligned harmony flow season that we're in. Okay, let me talk about this for a second, because a lot of stuff at Growmentum that you guys are doing in your churches and with your teams, it's very cliche, but I think we do try to work relationally with you on how do you build some alignment with your team, same page. It's not valued enough, right? It's like we have to establish vision, but you have distinctives in your churches, in your ministries, all in your leadership. So alignment is so elusive, but so key. And so that kind of signifies this season, right? Where we build systems to support what we want to do. We've got owners, not just doers. These are all things that, listen to a good leadership podcast, you're going to hear, but these are important things for you to look at, right? So what are we building that outlast our personalities? Are we building people as well as building programs? These are the things that are, here's what I would say. These are the things that are going to promote harmony and flow. Not guarantee it, but they're going to promote harmony and flow. Right. And so I actually was listening to a podcast this morning through the lens of this conversation we were going to have. And I couldn't help but think about some of the great things they were talking about and how it would translate to, man, that's going to help me stay out of whitewater. Or that's going to help me move. And so the structure itself may help you process some of the key leadership tools that you have. Okay. This is the treadmill one. I think we should pause here for a second because some of you may be there, right? So let me pause here for a second and let's just review this a little bit. Here's what it feels like if you're in treadmill. Everything works, but passion is fading. I'll just sit there for a second and let us have a quiet moment together, right? It's working. Like if you're honest, you're showing up and it's fine. If you find yourself fine, that's a problem. When we do SMPs with churches, we sit with their leadership team and we grade out church on mission. We do green, yellow, red, right? Some of you that have done it with us, right? We're doing the rock, paper, scissors thing, right? The scariest visual that I get when I'm done with that with the team, if yellow is prolific. If yellow is their prolific grade on their where they are in their discipleship journey and the leading people, it's more. I would rather see red because at least red says we've got opportunity, we've got things to go, right? Yellow. This is not always the case, but sometimes yellow really is significant of what I would say. Meh. It's fine. Everything's fine because that's why they voted yellow. It's like, is it great? No. Is it really working towards the vision and people connecting to Jesus? No. Is it terrible? No. It's better than that church up the street. So let's call it yellow. Right. And so you end up with a bunch of yellow, which is not inspiring for anybody. Right. And so guard against yellow. You may be on treadmill if you more meetings than you ever had before. I don't hate meetings. I'm not like meetings. We're actually going to talk about meetings if we have enough time. But if your meetings are greater than anything now, that may be a sign of treadmill, right? And if movement is decreasing, like things are moving and there's change that's happening, if that's decreasing and you're looking back, if you can do your church calendaring meeting in about 10 minutes for the coming year, that may be a sign of treadmill. If it's plug and play, that's probably treadmill. Oh yeah, we always do that in March, and then we do this, and then we do that, and then we do that. Okay, welcome to the treadmill, right? Because that's a sign of it. Okay, what must we do if we're in this? If we find ourselves in treadmill, purpose and risk, simplify some systems, look at meeting structures, look at staff flow, all those things. Maybe even team, as the team gotten a little bit wide and too fat as far as are we overstaffed, which is bringing us to treadmill, right? We got a lot of people doing very simple tasks. Recenter the team around our vision of why. Key questions, a couple of key questions would be what systems are just spinning and where have we lost the urgency for the mission? That one would keep me up at night. Where have we lost the urgency for the mission? That would be a sign of treadmill. I'm going to pause here and let you come to the altar of treadmill. All right. No one wants to unmute and come to Jesus around the treadmill. Well, Mark already did, so that's fair, right? Kyle, are you coming to Jesus right now? You're new. You be careful. We're recording this.
Oh yeah. Is my microphone working now?
It's working. Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah, I'm coming into an organization that I love. I just want to clarify that, but I'm seeing in this, it's so clear that I function naturally in white water and fun. That's where I fall back into fun, no doubt about myself. But I'm not a water guy, and they brought me in because I'm white water. But I think out of necessity for 22 months without a pastor, they got into some treadmill. They got systems that are working and that's progressing them forward. But then as we're coming together, we're kind of initially just kind of hitting and going, okay, so I'm on that white water trying to pull them into this white water. They're trying to pull, and so it's just navigating that tension of a healthy, thriving church, and yet setting systems that are going to be new systems because there's some new systems that are set out, but building and allowing for the maintenance for the credibility to be taken. Because right now I don't have the credibility. I just got hired, and so
so you got to be careful, right? Like this is a time where you're observing. Yep.
Yeah, how much do I spend some time just getting to know the system and valuing the system because they're doing stuff very, very well. But we have to continue to initiate some new things as well. So,
okay. Good. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. We're going to run out of time, so I apologize. I just want to move us a little bit. Okay, guys? I apologize. You're going to get all of this. And so at the sake of time, we're not going to talk about rut and death rattle because none of you are there. So it would be a waste of time to even talk about that. So we're just going to blow through that. Here we go. Recovery path. You ready? This is, hi, I'm Lee, and I'm recovering from treadmill. All right. So if you're brave enough, right, it's this thing of like, let's name the season we're in, right? Let's have the courage to say we're stuck. We're on this would be if you're on the right side of the momentum cycle. So if you're somewhere, even if you feel like you're at the top, but you're moving more to the right, you know, we need to get honest, name the season. We need to cut back and start going, have we lost track of our vision and our purpose? You know, where have we gotten drift? A drift is a great word for it, right? Because most of us, we never got there, um, you know, by accident. So it's drift, 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 drift. So can we drift? And how do we get, and this is where we say, how do we hear from God again around where we need to be going? Okay, let me say that again. How do we have a spiritual God conviction around where we need to go? The last thing I want you to do is get off this call and just start to create, you know, I got to get off the treadmill. So let's do rooted. I always want to do it anyway. Like, don't do that. Like, let's seek what God wants to do and what he might be doing in this season. Okay. And then this is where faith, leadership, fresh leadership, ideation, and faith come in, right? Where we need a little bit of disruption. So let me ask you an honest question. This is a grade your own paper. You either need to lean into your muscle of ideation that you have, or you need to find the ideators on your team or within your sphere and get them into the room and begin to allow them to slowly influence where you're going. You will not get off of treadmill just by good intentions. You've got to get some people around you, or you need to be that person that is going to go, where do we bring new voices in? Where do we create space for disruption? Where are we a little bit more aggressive with ideation, right? Calculated risk. And then I love this last one, that we begin to pray, not just for growth, right? But that we pray for God to do something through revival in us. And by the way, revival probably will throw you into whitewater. So there you go. Everybody that wants revival to fall, you're basically saying, God, take us to whitewater, which is amazing. Okay. Nate, we have like 3 minutes. So I'm going to throw to this stuff that you sent me, and you're going to be like, Lee, you're terrible. Oh, Ezekiel, right? Great example of this. So I'm just going to put this here. You guys can read it later, but we understand this whole idea of, you know, the bones and all that. Here's the reflection for teams. And I'm going to give Nate a minute or two to walk through some things. What season are we in? Are we maintaining momentum or manufacturing it? If God walked into our staff meeting, would he see faith or fear? And what do we need to bury before he can bring new life? Hard questions. You're going to get these. Good luck with that. Okay. Nate, did you want to add to that?
I mean, I've just got practical things now. I'm good.
Yeah,
good
that's where I want to go right here.
reflection.
Let me go. Oh, wait. Okay. So I didn't add them on here, but I will, Nate. Hit us real quick with some of the practical stuff that you and I talked about around some of the structural things that can help us both in whitewater and treadmill. Okay. Hit us.
Really quickly. So again, a lot of you guys will get this with meeting notes things. So just on meetings, man, if you guys don't start your team meetings with why, like in celebrating the wins, I think you're missing out. I really do. You know, you've heard the adage that you cultivate what you celebrate. And if you're not celebrating what God's doing in your midst and you're just celebrating productivity and report outs, honestly, I think it's starting to hollow out the life of what God is doing in your church. So I would say, hey, every big team meeting, at least the first 5 minutes should be going around the room talking about how they've seen God moving in their ministries. And so I'd say that's just one real quick. I think on processes, if you're evaluating.
By the way, Nate, grow minimum language, rise. You celebrate, like you guys have done stuff with us, right? We always start with ground game, ground game, ground game. And so that's the celebration piece of like, before we get into analysis and assessment, right? If you guys are even on your weekends, like let's analyze and do all of that. Let's get into like, what is it that we've gained ground? So keep going, Nate. Sorry.
Yep, that's good. No, I think like from a process standpoint, I would just say, you know, one of the big things for me is celebrate failure with purpose. If you guys have ever seen the movie Meet the Robinsons, it's a great clip of how they just celebrate when things fail. I think, you know, one of the key aspects of the treadmill phase is you stop innovating and ideating. And so again, if you guys are working genius people, the WIs, you know, start dying in the treadmill phase because they just don't feel like there's any space for new. And, you know, again, when there's innovation and ideation, there will be failure. But if you diminish failure or try to minimize it, those WI people, the people who are going to be bringing life into your church, are going to eventually leave.
Yeah.
And then I just say kind of the final thing, and this kind of ties back to an earlier question. I think like semi-annual reflection or analysis is really, really important, whether it's 4 helpful lists or ROI exercises, friction versus desire, things like that, to really go, hey, why did that work? Or why did that fail? And making sure that you're continuing to improve. And again, not just, well, we've always done it this way. And so I think there are some things that naturally you can bring into the life and the rhythm of your leadership that will help you, again, kind of go from that treadmill phase back into whitewater and try to live in that middle part of the pendulum.
Right. And vice versa. In whitewater, there's some of these systemic things that Nate even mentioned that will also go the other way, right? Like in whitewater, if we can get clarity around a 10-year vision and have a 1-year focus, set some rocks in place, those are things that will pull you out of whitewater and add the necessary structure. So this is good. I would encourage some of you guys, the ROI exercise that Nate just mentioned, return on investment. It's there's a call probably within the last year or two, if you go back in the archives, where we talked exclusively about that construct and how to run it with your team and how to use that. One of the things I'll say before we wrap it up is the ROI tool will actually probably illuminate where treadmill exists. It may not talk about whitewater, but it'll definitely tell you where we're doing things that are taking a lot of time, energy, attention, and money, and they're not producing what we thought as far as the mission, or they used to, and they're not anymore. So if you're curious about what that ROI thing is, either reach out to one of us or go back in the archives. I think it's labeled ROI. If somebody's in there right now, you have 2 minutes to find it and drop the link, but it's there. Let me give you 2 things real quick, guys. Okay, you ready? Don't jump off yet. Couple of things. Thanks for being here. It's July. People are like, we're doing a call. I'm a big consistency guy. Like, I feel like consistency is king. And if you miss it, it's like whatever. So thank you for being here today, especially some of you that are new. This is actually kind of cool because it's a little more manageable than some of the calls where there's twice as many people. Couple things because you're on today. Number one, 3 things. Don't forget to register for Think Tank Live. You're going to want to get your hotel space in Vegas pretty quickly because of how Vegas operates. So if you're coming, make sure you do that. Number 2, I'm going to offer you guys something today without asking, so I have the ability to do this. If any of you would love somebody to come and sit with your team on this or anything, any of our guys would come out just for travel and spend a day with your team. You're not ready to be like, hey, full grown men. Some of you already are, but you're like, man, I would love to have somebody boots on the ground, just spend a day. We would get somebody out there with you to spend a day, talk through this stuff, provide a partnership with you. And even if you're not ready to go full in, just for the cost of getting them there. So if any of you are interested in that and saying, yeah, I'd love to have Nate come out or Snod or any of these guys or Matt, somebody, whoever, hit us on an email. Hit me on an email and say, hey, I'd be interested in having a 1 day, kind of that complimentary assessment time with your team. We would do that. The third thing is this. Before we go, we want to offer a deep dive on this topic. And we do that occasionally. And this is kind of one of those topics. So in the chat, before you get off, if you're sitting there going, I need to talk about this more with a smaller group of 5 or 6, Brennan and Nate are going to run a deep dive a week from today for just the people that want to literally have a conversation. So what I need you to do in the chat right now is just put DD in the chat if you're saying, I would like to get that invitation to be on that deep dive. And Brennan will pick up those names and he will send you a calendar invite for another Zoom call, 30 to 45 minutes. If you're interested in where you can actually, you may have had a hard time conversing today, or you may have just been processing, but you can converse on a much more kind of cohorty level with guys. Put that in there and they will send you an invite probably for around this same time a week from today. Okay. Anything else, you guys? Snod, anything from you, Matt? Anything? You guys good? Thanks so much for being here today, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm glad to have some of the new faces on here. I hope that you're getting some rest and replenishment. If you're not getting the invite, make sure you let me know. If you're somehow getting on but not getting the calendar invite, it means, thank you, Caleb, for that smoke. It means that it means you're not on our actual Think Tank database. It also means you will not get the email. So like David, I think you're on, but if you're not getting the email invite, that means you're not going to get the playback and the notes from this. So if you're not, you can go on the website and just sign up for the call, and that'll That'll make sure that you get every invite for the call. Okay, we good?
Thanks,
Anything
Johnny.
else?
Thanks, Stu, for joining us today. First time. Love that.
Johnny, UK. Say the name of the city one more time because I got it. Come on. Here you go, guys. It's hard.
Huddersfield.
It's Huddersfield.
Yeah,
How'd I
that's
do?
it. That's it. Yeah, that's
Huddersfield.
it. That's all good.
All right. Love it. All right, guys. Have a great week.
I did it.